Hi, my name is Diene Drame. I'm a part of the Studio Museum in Harlem's Teen Leadership Council. And for this episode of Teen Talks, we have the privilege of speaking with Kahlil Robert Irving, a notable and compelling artist that throughout his career, he has been awarded with the Louis Comfort Tiffany Foundation Biennial Award in 2019 and the Joanne Mitchell Foundation Grant in 2020 for his incredible works. Currently, he has an exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art. Very nice to meet you, Kahlil.
So nice to meet you too. My name is Kahlil Robert Irving, and I go by he, him pronouns.
Hi, my name is Segundo, and I go by any pronouns as well.
My name is Cruz. I go by he, him.
My name is Rougiatou Diallo. I go by she, her.
It's really awesome and cool to have you here. I guess we can start off with a simple question. How was your day?
I'm in New York for a short time, for a week and a half. I used to live here. I had an apartment on Myrtle and Marcus Garvey. And I was just walking with a friend, and she was saying, "Do you miss living here?" And one part of my mind and my body, I say yes, like with a screaming, like, yes, I want to be in New York. And then the other side says, like, I'm happy to go home to St. Louis, Missouri, because I helped take care of my grandmother, and I'm trying to get settled into a new studio. So at this moment, I'm kind of like really reflecting on her asking me that question. But the weather's nice. The sun is out, blue skies. I mean, who can complain about that on a beautiful spring day? It's a little too cold, but it's still pretty great. How are your days going?
Good so far.
My day's going well. Thanks for asking. Same here.
So,
Yeah, my day is also going well. I'm enjoying the weather so far. It did get a little cold, as you mentioned, but it's been getting better. So I'm enjoying it.
what's something that occurred or was a part of your experience when you went to MoMA and you saw the exhibition? Like maybe what was your first initial response to seeing like the dynamic presentation? And it can be a small thing. It could be like something you saw.
Okay. When I first entered, it was, I don't know, it was not overwhelming. Well, yes, it was kind of overwhelming, but it was like informative, overwhelming, if that makes sense. But there was one thing that stuck with me. It was the fact that one of your pieces was like was interactive with a QR code. I enjoyed like scanning it and seeing where it took me. It like, Irv, do you want to explain that?
Why did I include QR codes in the installation?
Yeah.
This is the third time that I've made like a large wallpaper work that kind of spans the amount of space. And in 2020, in the beginning of the pandemic, I started on a project with a friend named Richard Munaba, who's a designer and artist. And I wanted to try to make a digital collage in the computer space that was interactive. And so when putting this exhibition together, I was trying to figure out ways that I could bring the audience into the work, that they would have a specific experience outside of the gallery, that there was information that they could also take away with them. When I was speaking to Legacy and Thelma about doing the exhibition, I told them that I wanted to make a handout with the teen programs between the two museums so that we could, work on something that people could take away and have it as a residue of the show. And that obviously didn't get to happen, or we would have met each other a lot sooner than this. And so then I started to say, oh, well, and I'd come to New York too in end of May of last year, when Thelma and Legacy asked me if I would do the show in the first place. And I was going out to eat, and you sit outside and you have to sign up on the QR code to figure out what the menu is. So I was like, well, then the viewer could take away information from my exhibition if I include a QR code in the photos.
Yeah, I really liked the QR code. It stuck with me.
Thank you.
It also like led to a Spotify playlist, right?
Yes, well, it led to
Just a
it,
playlist.
well, if you go on your phone, it looks like a playlist, but that's actually the sculptural installation, a part of the project that I did for Wesleyan University. It's called Safety First and Fantasies. And the playlist in that sculpture, that internet sculpture, is songs that people have sampled over the last several decades to make other songs. So it's kind of like these digital collages are remixes of things that I see on the internet, or photographs that I take, or images that I find, and I mix them up and put them together in these collages. And so the digital sculpture and the playlist is trying to like deal with the issue or the question of altering something and making it something else, but are coming from places of reference, or like of like maybe having had a small experience with something and then making something from it, like a sample of a song from the 70s. Like everybody knows Kanye, right? But Kanye made a song called Through the Wire, right? When his mouth was sewn shut from having a car accident. Well, to make the song Through the Wire, he sampled heavily another famous song called Through the Fire. And so that's what that like playlist and the digital sculptures and the collages are all about.
So at MoMA, what was the first thing that you wanted people to see when they first walked into the exhibition?
Huh. Well, it's funny, when I first walked in to see it being installed in the galleries, I didn't choose the color for the wall, the blue with my name silk screened on top, but that's what I really like people being able to see when they first walk in. But in the gallery proper, I thought, where the blue wall has the corner, and then there's that wall piece that hangs on the wall, right, kind of butt up to the corner when you enter. There are QR codes along the strip of that long tablet piece. And so I'd hoped that some people would catch those QR codes there in that liminal space of the doorway. But when designing the exhibition on the model and the computer, I really wanted people to like go, like, I wanted their eyes to go up and down as they like looked around the space. That was the initial goal. Or what I wanted them to see first.
So, what is your biggest inspiration? Like, who
My biggest
inspired?
inspiration, my grandmother. Yeah, it's my grandmother. She worked as a nurse for 50 years, and she had a certain kind of work ethic. And she just like shared, she didn't necessarily share things from life with me, but she showed me how you could be in life. And I really appreciate that. And how my grandmother comes into the work is that the work is like semi-autobiographical, but then in some ways, but it's like not autobiographical. It's more almost diaristic in a way, if I could say that. Like it's like my journal is like on the walls and around. But I'm inspired by music. I think every so often there's another musical artist that I like really get enthralled with and really invest and engage in. Like Tracy Chapman was like for like almost 2.5 years, I listened to all of Tracy's albums over and over and over. Because I really, when you hear the song for the first time and it just like hits you emotionally and you like feel it in there, when I feel that feeling, I have a habit of like repeating a song over and over and over and over and over until it's almost like out of my system, and then I can't necessarily listen to it again until I get that feeling again from it. But I think when I hear one song and I exhaust that feeling, I'm like hungry and I have to like find it again in another song. And that source of like ecstasy, I feel like that's like a tingly feeling throughout your whole body. I feel like I'm never satisfied because I'm always looking for another song that gives me that feeling of excitement and emotional connection. I'm inspired by the New York landscape. I came in 2011 for the first time when I did a summer program here in New York in 2011. And seeing the buildings from the airplane window was like, it blew my mind. I like didn't ever been to a city like this before. And I like, and also seeing it through all five boroughs, not just Manhattan or Brooklyn or separating it, but just like seeing it as a mass in space is pretty inspiring to me. So I gotta ask you, what are my inspiration? Like what inspires me? But can I ask you a question? When you ask me what is my inspiration, when looking at my exhibition, what do you think my inspirations are? What do you think inspires me?
I don't know. When I looked at your gallery, it was full of like a lot of tweets and stuff. I'm like, whoa, like how'd you get all this idea from? Like me wondering how did you have the time to, look up all these tweets and just paste them on the wall all together?
I use Photoshop. So I mostly do everything in the computer.
Did you save those tweets?
I have an archive of photos that I've been collecting since 2013. So almost 10 years I've been saving stuff on flash drives, external hard drives, computers, magazines, books, newspapers. I scan objects into the computer and everything. What were you gonna ask?
Where I think you got your inspiration was mainly social media, just because of the tweets, the memes that was on the meme wall, like the news articles and like the newspaper stories that you put on like the walls. That's where I felt like you actually like got your inspiration from for mainly that exhibition.
And was it, but then would you say that that's inspiration, or is that something where I'm deriving material from? I think maybe the internet is like my source of material gathering, but inspiration, did you see like like you were standing on the ground and as you looked up the walls, you saw clouds, and then above the clouds, you saw the stars, the images of stars. And then at the bottom, you saw like cross sections of the earth. No, did you see? Or in the asphalt, did you see the cross section of the asphalt?
I think I remember seeing that.
Yeah, it's like, but I also think like you seeing that like I'm inspired also like by the computer's architecture, like how like you have so much going on and you can like have all these windows at the same time. Inspiration is tricky. Do I seem crazy? Does like the artwork make me think like I think about stuff too much or something?
Honestly,
So
I'm kind of like I kind of think the same way.
Do you think that, could you see any like point to any of the, why I may have shared some of those things on the wall?
I
Like
think
were
it's
any of
really
the things
abstract.
important?
Yeah, a lot of it still resonated with me. Like you mentioned before, the QR codes. I remember that my eyes were like glued on the wall looking all over for them. It was really interesting to look at.
Did you see any of the movie screenshots of movies or
Yeah, I do
TV
remember seeing
shows?
those.
I love watching TV.
What is your most notable achievement in life?
Huh. On Monday, it was my 30th birthday. And as a young Black man who lives in St. Louis, being able to make it to 30 and like not ever necessarily knowing what 30 years old would look like in my life, I got to make it here. And I'm proud of it because I know so many people, unfortunately, lose their lives or transition maybe too soon. And I see it as a privilege and something that is important. Another one, I think, I mean, you said most notable, so it's kind of hard to, but moving home full time to help take care of my grandmother. My grandmother uh, needed some extra help. And so I wanted to move home and support her and be the best that I could and kind of share with her some of the fruits of all the things that she gave to me. But were you asking maybe more in terms of my career as an artist?
You could, if you would like. What is
I think the moment when I think in everyone's careers, there's like a moment where you feel like you have to like say yes to everything and you have to like accept every exhibition opportunity because you just don't know where things are going to come from. I think when I got to a point where I could decipher what was really, really, really important versus things that I didn't necessarily need to do, getting to the space of having the privilege of having those decision making opportunities is my most notable achievement. Because getting to this point, I get to now also share with others who may not necessarily have all the things that I have or the same privileges with me. So when we think about making room for others or um, really developing community and friendships and relationships and, and making room for other people who you feel like are important, I get to do that. And that's not something that I like to say out loud because I'm not counting coins. Like I'm not counting what I do, like my good deeds. I just share it with you because it's something that's really important to me.
Um, why do you like the type of art you do, like as opposed to others?
I don't necessarily talk about myself as like a conceptual artist or like a post studio artist. And like a conceptual artist is like somebody who just like thinks about a whole bunch of stuff and like puts things together and it doesn't necessarily have to be out of any specific media. But I make ceramic sculptures. I've never had the opportunity to make bronze, but I would make a bronze if I had the chance. I don't know necessarily. Well, no, I do know what I would want to make out of a bronze because people keep asking me when can they touch my ceramic sculptures. So I thought that I could make bronze replications of my sculptures so people could touch them, or some kind of sculpture out of metal so that people could touch them. Um, so I don't necessarily have a reason why like one is more important than another, but I'm excited by opportunities. So I take on what I can when I can. And so I like making art for me is really expansive and a lot of fun, but it's also built from ideas that I've been thinking about since I was in high school. So it's a really exciting journey. And I think I like to also live very close to change. So at any moment in my studio is 13,000 square feet. So as I clean it up and reorganize and renovate the building, I can like in one part of my building, I can make prints, work on printmaking in my studio. And then another part of my studio, I could clean it up and like do stuff with metal, but not necessarily have to only do one thing. I mean, that's a privilege also that my grandmother showed me. My grandmother was a nurse for 50 years, and seeing her be so committed to one thing and working so hard for us to have food and a home, she showed me that I can diversify my interests and have multiple interest streams, not just be focused on one. You shared you like making art. What do you like? What are you working on? What are you thinking about when you make art?
When I make art, it's kind of similar to you. I'm mostly inspired by my surroundings and experiences, even music sometimes.
Yeah, I think building off to what you're saying, what do you think, or to you, what's your like most memorable piece, like art piece or just project in general?
Hmm. I was talking to a friend who just turned 60 years old, and he said, I was asking him questions about his life, and he said, "Oh, it's foggy. I can't remember it so much." And I was thinking, like, when I'm 60, I'm 30 right now. Will I have the best memory of the times right now in my life? I mean, of course, we have YouTube and the internet and everything. So now it's like you can like type yourself in and find things that you've done and have a different kind of record of it all. So I think at this point, the piece, something that's very memorable and very important to me, is a work from 2017 that I made that looked like a blue and white European ceramic, but it had a sheet of thin clay on top that I tried to make look like newspaper. And that piece is very memorable to me because I'm constantly thinking about how I laid the thin sheet of clay on top and it didn't break. You guys did a clay workshop too, right?
Yeah, we did. After senior exhibition, we had like a little ceramics slash like clay mini class.
Cool. And like clay is the wet material that can dry out and be turned back into malleable material. And then ceramic is when things are fired and it's hard. So in like the differentiation, because you can't melt, like you can't put things that have been fired in water and break them down again. It takes like 10,000 years for the clay to turn back into workable material, which is kind of crazy. But are your pieces going to be fired?
No, I think ours were like the malleable ones and like let air dry, I
Oh,
believe.
okay. That's cool. That's cool. I've
But
never done anything with air dry clay before. I want to try it because it could be a lot more forgiving than the materials that I'm working with. Because when one of my pieces breaks, I have to use either take it to a conservator or I have to take it to I have to use like masonry cement or a kind of material that can be fired in the kiln to like glue them back together. But they never go back together, right?
so I guess like when did you start doing or like find interest in doing ceramics, including
Oh,
art?
well, I've been making pottery since I was 12. So ceramics has been a part of my life for the last 18 years. But making art, I got a full tuition scholarship to go to the Kansas City Art Institute in 2010. I applied to two colleges, the School of the Art Institute of Chicago and the Kansas City Art Institute. And when I when I was getting the award letter from the Art Institute in Chicago, they said that they were only going to give me a scholarship of $45,000, and the first year would be $6,000. The next year would be this amount of money, so on and so on. And then they said, well, you're also not smart enough, so you'd have to take 5 years of college. Congratulations. And I was like, man, that's really bad. And the Kansas City Art Institute sent me a letter that I would get $15,000 a year if I went to school there. But then the tuition was still $35,000. I didn't know what to do. And one day I was on the bus, public transit, going from high school to my ceramic studio that I went to in high school. It was a community center called Craft Alliance Center for Art and Design. And I got a call, and the guy said, "Hi, this is so-and-so from the Art Institute. We want to award you the full tuition scholarship. You can throw away the letter that we sent you." And getting that opportunity to go to college was really interesting because it was a space where so much was happening all the time. And I always wanted to be in the classroom, work in the studio. I wanted to go to the museums and take all the trips that I could. And so I felt like I've been a student up until then of art. I didn't really think like I was making art until I turned 21. So like for 9 years, I just felt like I was really learning and absorbing so much. And then in 2013, it just like, I was like, I have something to say, and I said it. And I thought that was really beautiful. It was complicated, but it was beautiful. I was studying abroad in Hungary, in Central Europe, which was really unique. But yeah, so it took a lot of time before I really felt that I could really call myself an artist.
How does it feel to have your work in one of the biggest museums in New York City?
It's an honor because you just never know when someone's watching or someone's interested. And when you get the call and you do it, you know, in certain ways and in certain spaces, your whole life can change. And in many ways, having shown and worked with Legacy and Thelma and Yelena and everyone at the Studio Museum and Sydney Briggs and everyone at MoMA, you know, it just like comes to be, you start to see yourself as another part of the organism. And there are like really good things about it and really not necessarily good things about it, but you start to find community with people through the experience of doing. And I really appreciated it. I still appreciate it as the exhibition closes on Sunday, and then people are gonna expend their labor to like take my work down. You know, all of those parts of the experience are not forgotten, and I really appreciate like getting the chance to meet new people and have a whole new audience to what I do.
So how many countries you've been in?
20.
Can you name like some? Not all.
I've been to Colombia, England, France, Hungary, Palestine, Germany, Vietnam.
How about not play in Africa or no?
I haven't been to the continent yet.
Oh,
My,
okay.
my goal with the pandemic was to go to Egypt, Mexico, and China, but then the pandemic changed everything.
Yeah.
And I want to go to, and I have a good friend who lives in Kenya, and I wanted to go visit her. So,
Speaking of traveling, thank you, Kahlil, for being here. This has been super exciting and we've learned a lot. Do you want to share where people can reach you and see more of your artwork in the future? I'm sure
yeah,
many people would love to check you out.
I have a website. It's KahlilIrving.com. And I use Instagram, and that's like my whole name, Kahlil Robert Irving. And I think that's about it. Thank you
All right.
so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. All right. Bye.
Bye.